Welcome back to Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. Last time we began part 3 and the Laguz Alliance gained a foothold in Benyon. But we only conquered one of 2 fortresses that are our first targets, and now it's time for the second one.
The Laguz Alliance sacks Flaguer with ease and sets off immediately for Mujil. The fortresses of Flaguer and Mujil are both key to the defense of western Benyon, and have figured for many years in the military plans of Gallia, Crimea, and Dain. The fortress of Mujil is well defended by thick walls and countless blades. However, the Laguz Alliance knows that if they are to win this war, Mujil must fall. Ike and his companions march on, though thoughts of the medallion and the dark god entombed within fill their hearts with dread.
One thing I like about that map is, you'll notice that we're advancing into Benyon through Crimea. This makes sense because back in the last game they established there's an impenetrable mountain range between Gallia and Benyon, and that was why we had to find a ship to take the oversea route to get to Benyon. Obviously we couldn't use this route in Path of Radiance because it would have involved going too deep into Crimean territory, which was at the time occupied by Dain, so I like the detail there. So this fortress... when I've took the words right out of my mouth, this battle will not be as easy. You do realize we'll need to get through walls in order to get to them. Oh yes, there's that too. Soren, I think you greatly overestimate Skrymir. Like I said, you greatly overestimated him. This dialogue's actually a little ironic considering, well, I won't say anything for now. This is a great line from Skrymir, though the I do not know how to fight cowards sequence is a little bit longer in the extended script, and I think Ranulf interjects a little bit more too. Ranulf is great. Unfortunately, being the leader of the Laguz army means that he can afford to have other people think for him. So we need to make plans for the fact that he's an idiot. Just a bit of backstory there. So, in the extended script, Ranulf also explains here that they're worried that if Kanagas left Gallia, they might risk an airstrike from Benyon Pegasus Knights or Draco Knights, which would be really bad for them if Kanagas wasn't there. Yeah, we remember that guy. He's Kanagas' shadow. And being his shadow, he pretty much has to do what Kanagas tells him at all times. So unfortunately, our job is to do the thinking for Skrymir. Soren doesn't like it. For obvious reasons. Admittedly, Soren wouldn't have really considered this before. And once again, we cut back to the base, just like in part 1, I believe it was 1-7, yes, it was definitely 1-7. The chances of our plan succeeding is greatly increased by the fact they don't tell the audience about it. So, let's see, we still can't access the shops yet, so the items that we currently have are really important, and Titania ran down her short axe quite a lot over the course of the previous chapter. I can either trade Boyd's hand axe over to her, or I could trade Boyd's hand axe to Gatrie. I don't really have that much in the way of throwing spears apart from on Oscar, and I kind of like having the short spear on Oscar. I might actually trade Boyd's hand axe over to Gatrie because taking advantage of the fact that Gatrie can actually use axes. Although it's impossible for him to get a, yeah, that is one annoying thing that I forgot to fully explain in the last part. So, weapon rank transfers, they happen, I think, regardless of if you get to level 20 or not in the previous game, but you can only get weapon rank transfer bonuses to weapon ranks a character actually had access to in Path of Radiance. Because Path of Radiance generals used swords and lances, Gatrie can't get weapon rank bonuses from transfers to axes. And this really hurts Rice because in Path of Radiance, as you can see here, he automatically starts with an S staff rank, but in Path of Radiance, Staff and Light were the same rank, and thus he can't ever get transfer bonuses to his Light rank in this one. Anyway, I'm going to give you the hand axe. Boyd's going to be staying behind for most of this chapter to deal with some reinforcements that appear at the start of the map, which we will have to take care of because this is going to be a route chapter. And I think Mia's okay on weapons at this point. The crossbow can go on either Shinnon or Rolf, as I plan on training Rolf. I'm going to go ahead and give it to him. Shinnon's probably fine with those two bows. I'm just going to convoy that coin because there's no use keeping that for now. Yeah, Titania could take it too, and honestly, it's probably better if she does, but I think I'm going to leave Titania with that for now. Doesn't seem like there's, yeah, not really much else I can do here. So I do want to show one thing. So a lot of people pointed out to me, and I did know this, I just forgot to show it in the last part. The description for Florette was actually wrong in the American version. The PL version fixed it. So it still calls it a magical blade, but in the American version, it actually said it uses magic instead of strength to calculate damage, which is wrong. It's a physical weapon. Also, those stats are incredibly good. Like I said in Miss Bio, most physical fighters would kill for a weapon like Florette's. Unfortunately, on Mist herself, it's not that great. Now, we did get a little bit of bonus experience from the last chapter, so I might want to use a little bit. Like I said, at this point, Ike gets more out of leveling via bonus experience than by regular level ups. And at this point, he's pretty much always going to gain speed, luck, and defense, because his other growths are terrible, and yes, he has definitely capped HP at this point. So yeah, Ike's stats are already incredibly high, and we've only just started part 3. Kinda wish I could promote early, but he can't. As for Soren, I probably will be promoting him early later in the game, because he'll eventually hit a point where he's just capped everything worthwhile, because the caps in second tier are so awful, and I'll just have to promote him early, because otherwise he just won't be getting stats at all. Should I go for another one? You know what, I'm going to go ahead and level up Gatrie once with bonus experience, because he didn't level up at all in the last chapter. Was kind of hoping for speed, but that's probably alright. I still love how Lance Paladin gets abbreviated to Lance Pal. I should have mentioned that back when the Crimean Knights first joined. I'm not going to bonus experience Rolf, because at this point I think he does, on average, get better gains from leveling normally. Now the question here is, you know what, I can actually do both. Let's give Soren one more level. And now he's capped speed. So at this point, it's almost worthless to get Soren regular level up, so I will be promoting him as soon as I get a 3rd tier promotion item. Unless I want to get him a little bit more luck and HP. And now, I think I can go go for another one on Gatrie, or... because Ike doesn't really need more help. Let's just go for one on Gatrie. He didn't really get much action in the last chapter. And that's good. Even though 21 speed is still not the best for this point in the game. Okay, now as for support, no one can support yet. So let's just go straight to info. I remember this base conversation. This is one of the best base conversations in the game. I'm gonna save that for last. Firstly, let's do this. Oh, this one's also a really strange base conversation. And by strange, I mean it's funny for all the wrong reasons. So... Rolf and Boyd are going to have an argument over which is better on the battlefield, strength or skill. The problem with this conversation is that Rolf actually has a better strength growth than Boyd, so him saying that skill is more important is kind of not that fitting for him. And yeah, accusing Boyd of being an idiot meathead when you have a higher strength growth than him is a little bit hypocritical. That may be true of, say, Binding Blade, but in this game everyone has so much skill and weapons have such high accuracy that skill isn't really all that important. This is an important point too, though. Of course, speed is much more important than either of those. Well, I know of some characters who have high stats in one area but not the other and are still decent. Also, speed's more important than both of them. Miss fixing up clothes was definitely mentioned quite a few times in the last game. Yeah, Oscar's been cooking for an entire Lagoo's army. That must be an experience. Well, it's at least grown slightly, although his shorts could easily use some alteration. Yeah, because a lot of people like to make who likes short shorts jokes involving Rolf. If you've seen his battle model, that'll make sense. And they're still butting heads as always. As I promised, I'll do this one last because it's amazing. And at this point, I haven't named this part, but I know what I'm going to name this. In fact, I've known since before I started playing Radiant Dawn what I would name this part when I eventually got to it. For some reason, I'm actually hearing Mia's hero's voice when she says these lines. A lot of people think her voice makes her sound way older than she actually is, which I guess makes sense. And something that I didn't know was that Lanny Minella apparently not only voices Mia, but she's also Rolf, Mist, and Micaiah. At least her Mia voice isn't anywhere near as bad as Rolf and Mist. She must have just had really bad direction for those two. Yeah, challenging Ike in this game is probably not going to end well for you. He's got the speed of a swordmaster while still having massive strength and really good skill, so he's basically everything that Boyd and Rolf are arguing about and more. It's always convenient when you have healers, because then you can spar as much as you want, well, preferably not to the point of death, and they can just heal you afterwards. This is also funny because Rice and Mia had a support in Path of Radiance, and also this line is kind of interesting. But yeah, she thought that he was her destined arch-rival, which makes absolutely no sense. And presumably he has a lot of blood to clean up afterwards. Yeah, speaking of Nia, her white-clad arch-rival is something that is never revealed in the series, and people love to speculate on it. There are some people who think that it's Lucia, but the two of them never really interact. And now the one you've probably all been waiting for. This has given rise to a very, well, it used to be pretty memorable, but I don't know if a lot of people remember this quote these days. So, Gatrie is pretty similar to how he used to be. And Shinnen is still snarking at his expense. And Shinnen is still a racist asshole. Seriously, please claw him in the face right now. And this is why I don't want to use, Shinnen. Also, okay, this is the first instance of this. This character actually has a different name in the European version, and that's only because the American version got his name wrong. They called him Kiza with a Z, and back in Path of Radiance, his name was mentioned, you might remember this, in Leth and Ranulf Supports. And it was spelled this way, even in the American version of Path of Radiance, so Kisha is actually what his name is supposed to be. I forgot that he even appeared in this conversation, because he's pretty irrelevant. We'll see more on him and Lyra later. And playing the Ranulf card will automatically get Lyra to shut up. Shut up, Shinnen, please. Yeah, if anything, he's actually got even more insufferable about it in this game. Shinnen is about to say the famous line. The thing is, it's actually kind of disturbing in context. Out of context, though, it's amazing. And thus, the greatest OTP in the history of OTPs has emerged, Gatrie X Tree in a Skirt. Like I said though, in context, the line is actually not that funny at all because Shinnen's being a racist asshole again. But out of context, that line is great. Somebody please write a Gatrie and Tree in a Skirt S support. Anyway, that should be everything we can do at this point. There's not really that much I can do in terms of items. And just like the last chapter, we won't be able to access preparations before this one, so this is our last chance to save before the battle. I'm going to be taking that opportunity. So what is this plan they were talking about? This is also another example of a scene that's much longer in the extended script. Looks like this is another case of Operation We Need Disguises. Also, the music that's playing right now, I'll just shut up for this. I hope you took a long listen to that song while it was playing, because that's the one time it plays in the entire game. That song is called Cats at Play. It only plays in that dialogue sequence. That dialogue sequence is a lot longer in the extended script. In fact, the soldiers end up mentioning the name of a commander who never even makes a physical appearance or isn't even relevant otherwise. That's kind of a running theme with the extended script. There's a lot of world building by mentioning names of people and places that are never relevant or are never even seen, but just add a bit of flavor to the world. So they mention, I think, like the Ertz mountain range in the extended script for one prologue. That's not mentioned at all in the regular script. And so the food was laced with sleeping drugs. That was our plan. And next up of our plan is a route chapter. So let's do this. And this guy, he is one of the most unfortunately named bosses in the entire series, except perhaps the boss of Chapter 3 in the American version of Shadow Dragon. But seriously, Romit. Your parents never even gave you a chance, did they?